This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Links in the description below.
Today we're going to be talking about how to record yourself on Marimba. Fixed setup, which is the studio setup, 2 condenser microphones, 2 microphone stands, 2 XLR cables, an audio interface, and a computer, the portable setup. It's the easiest one, portable recorder, and a stand. I have seen some people put them on the ends of the marimba horizontally facing inwards. It's gonna sound super weird, don't do it. And yeah, if you've reached this point, you should have a very nice recording of yourself playing marimba, and you should be very proud of yourself because you did it all on your own. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of The Studio. My name is Adam. In today's Technique Talk video, we're gonna be talking about recording.
I recall Central Park and Fall.
Thank you so much to my studio VIPs, Robert Utomo, Marimba Maurice, Ryan Carlisle, Sangshun Han, Scott Rader, Greg Harris, Tom Dominic Chung, Dean P. Newberger, and Bradley Crowley. Thank you so much for your continued support. And today's featured studio artist is Rain. Thank you so much for your continued support. And if you'd like to become a studio VIP or a studio artist, you can go to patreon.com/AdamTan, or you can click over here. Welcome back to the show once again. Hope you've been well, hope you've been staying safe. And yes, today we're going to be talking about how to record yourself on marimba. As musicians, it's really important to know how to record yourself, especially in times like this, where we're all stuck at home and we need to send recordings of ourselves to our professors, to potential audition panels, and knowing how to record yourself efficiently and quickly will save yourself a lot of time. If you're new to this channel, my name's Adam and I've been recording myself on this channel for the last 4 years. I have over 100 episodes about all topics related to percussion. If you want to be part of the family, hit that red subscribe button below to keep up with my uploads as I upload every single week. So in today's video, I'm going to be making it super simple. I'm giving you 3 steps to record yourself on marimba. And keep in mind, even though this video is going to be demonstrated with marimba in mind, you can use these techniques for pretty much any other instrument. Everything that I'm going to be talking about is going to be in the description below, including the gear that I'm using, including recordings where you can hear this setup in action. I'm not going to put any recordings in this video to make it shorter. And of course, there are timestamps along the bottom so that you can skip to your favorite section. So since we're talking about it, step number 1 is gear. Now, as someone who's surrounded by tech and gear all day long in this studio, it can be very tiring talking about specs and numbers and things that just get too technical. But fortunately for us, a simple recording setup does not need to be that complicated. And as you can see on this table, I don't have that much stuff. And to simplify it even further, I actually have 2 setups. One of them is a portable setup and one of them is a fixed setup. So let's start off with the portable setup. It's the easiest one. It only involves 2 things. One of them is a portable recorder and a stand. Super simple. Heaps of people at music schools have setups like this, which are just really lightweight, really portable, and easy to use. But the important thing to know is what you're getting out of this system. So the recorder that I use is the Tascam DR40. It's a very simple recorder with 2 stereo microphones and also 2 XLR inputs at the bottom. This particular model can retail between $200 to $300, but there are many variations of this kind of recorder from brands like Tascam, Zoom, Sony. At a minimum, I'd suggest getting one that has stereo microphones at the top. If your budget allows it, I would also recommend getting one with XLR inputs at the bottom. This will allow you to plug in microphones in the future if you decide to buy microphones, or if your friend has some really nice microphones, you can just borrow them and plug them straight in. The 2 other things you'll need for this setup is an SD card and also some batteries. So SD cards, do not skimp out on SD cards because your recording setup is only as good as its memory. If the SD card fails, your entire recording is gone. I would recommend spending on a name brand, decent quality SD card. I've got links to that in the description below. Batteries, you don't really need to get fancy batteries because this is a pretty low powered device. That being said, when you start plugging in things like mics, it does start to draw out more power. So the best thing to do is to get some rechargeable batteries like these. Rechargeable batteries may look expensive in the short term, but they're actually cheaper in the long term because you don't have to keep buying batteries over and over again, and it's better for the environment. Additionally, some newer models will let you power the device via USB, but given that we're using this as a portable device, I usually find that batteries are more convenient. The stand, you don't need anything fancy for it. Just a normal tripod will be fine because it is a tripod mount. A cheap tripod will do fine because this is not a very heavy device. It's not going to fall over easily. You can also use a light stand, you can use selfie sticks, you can use gorilla pods. The list is endless. But the most important thing is, no matter what stand you get, make sure it can go above your head in terms of height. That will allow you to angle it towards the instrument more effectively and capture more of the sound, which we'll talk about later on. The The second setup is the full fixed setup, which is the studio setup. It's the one that I use to record all of my videos because I'm always in this room. This setup never leaves the room. You can even see the microphone stands are still up behind me. This setup actually is also very simple. All it involves is 2 condenser microphones, 2 microphone stands, 2 XLR cables, an audio interface, and a computer. So firstly, the microphones. So we have dynamic microphones and condenser microphones. Dynamic microphones, generally they have a battery in them. Generally they're used to amplify things. For example, in live sound situations, you know, like the microphones singers used to sing, that's a dynamic microphone. Whereas condenser microphones are used more for recording applications. They're better at capturing sounds, but they do not have any batteries or any sort of power in them, and they generally tend to be a little bit less rugged. These 2 microphones are still, to this day, the cheapest condenser microphones on the market right now. They are the Behringer C2s, and I've used them for over 4 years. They still sound the same as the first day that I got them. You cannot beat the value for money here. $99 for 2 microphones. Name me another microphone that is $50. Sure, they're definitely not the best microphones in the world, but I've recorded pretty much everything you've heard on this show. All the examples I linked down below, I've recorded with these microphones, and I think they sound great. For the price, I think they're very easy to use. They're compact. They even have filters on them. They have just the normal response. They have a low cut filter, and they also have a -10 decibel filter. I mean, come on. That's so many features in one microphone. It's totally up to you. Just make sure that the pattern on the microphones is a cardioid pattern, which is this round heart shape diagram. So basically when you have cardioid pattern, it's recording everything in front of it, but nothing behind it, which means you won't get any sound from the back. It reduces your chance of background noise and static and all that other kind of stuff. So you get a very nice clean sound. Microphone stands, it doesn't really matter which brand you get as long as it has a boom arm and that it's able to go nice and high, like we said before. This boom arm will allow the microphone to go over the marimba, which is very important for us because 5-octave marimbas can be quite big sometimes. Cables, generally speaking, most cables are the same, but you don't want to get cables that have really poor plugs. You want them to feel nice and sturdy towards the ends. So if you ever get the chance, definitely have a look at the cables closely before you buy them. The cables that you need are XLR cables, or XLR male to XLR female. These are used for many applications, including microphones, speakers, and even lighting. And basically the male end, which is the plug end, goes into your microphone. And usually it just goes in like this, clicks in, and you usually have a little tab that you can push to take it out. And then the female end, which I usually just call the whole end, goes into your audio interface. And this one doesn't have a tab, you just put it straight in. 3 meters is generally a good length. Anything less than 3 meters is going to be too short because you also need to account for the height of the microphone stand. And as you can see here, these cables are really short. These are actually 2-meter cables, and I used to use them in my old videos, and the cables would always stretch so much. They were so tight, they would even get into the shot in some of my older videos. And pro tip, the first thing you should do with your cables is label them with some sort of tape. I've got pink tape on one cable and blue tape on the other cable. That lets me differentiate between left and right, especially when there's a lot of tangle going on. So if I plug in the blue one into input 1 and the pink one into input 2, I know which one's which. Next up is the audio interface. So basically the audio interface takes your analog signal from the microphone and converts it into digital for your computer so that you can edit it, so that you can upload it, all that kind of stuff. The audio interface also powers your microphones because remember, they don't have batteries. So it's important to have a good quality audio interface because then it can provide clean power and a clean signal to your computer. Now, my favorite audio interface is one of the most popular ones. It's the Focusrite Scarlett series. This is the 2i4. I think this is the 2nd generation model. They have a new one now that looks even cooler. There's lights on the front that tell you when it's getting too loud, which is great from when I'm recording from a distance. And it's just a really nice small unit. It connects via USB to my computer. It doesn't need any particular software. You can use it straight out of the box. And I believe some of the newer models have USB-C. Fancy. I've linked a few audio interfaces down in the description below, but whatever interface you decide to buy, make sure it has 2 XLR inputs on the front because a lot of interfaces label themselves as 2 inputs, but they only have 1 XLR input. And these are the ones that you need because you need that power, as we mentioned before. So don't get tricked. And finally, you're gonna need a computer, whether it's a desktop or a laptop. I use a Surface Pro 7, but I used to use a MacBook Pro. All of these things work exactly the same. Now on the computer, you're gonna need a piece of software called a digital audio workstation, or a DAW, or some people call it a DAW. Even though it sounds very complicated, DAWs can be really simple if all you're doing is just recording stuff. Generally, I would suggest free options like GarageBand on Mac or Audacity on Windows. I'll have links to those in the description below. Now, if you want to be really clever, you don't actually have to use the audio interface or the computer if you use your portable recorder instead and just plug your microphones into those XLR inputs. In fact, a lot of my pieces on the channel are recorded using this. So the one other thing that I would get, no matter which setup you have, the portable or the fixed one, is a pair of headphones. And I have two pairs of headphones here to show you the difference. One of them is the headphones I use for recording, and one of them is the headphones I use for general listening. So to put it into context, these are my ATH M50X headphones from Audio-Technica, which are very affordable studio monitor headphones. Although if the price is still too high, I would totally go for their ATH M20X, which is about half the price. These headphones have a good blend between general listening and monitor sound. They're not super raw, but they're raw enough that you can hear what's going on. It also comes with 3 very long cables, which is great for when you want to record yourself and hear yourself at the same time. So it's a very good option as opposed to using your laptop speakers. My general listening headphones are actually these Bluetooth headphones, the Bose QC35-2s. Very good for general listening, very comfortable, great for traveling, but not so great for recording because it artificially boosts the bass, and there's also the noise cancellation, which sort of plays with your mind a little bit. So always get the most accurate headphones possible. Okay, step 2 is setup. Well, in the case of the portable setup, it's very simple. All you have to do is get your stand, mount it very high, put your recorder on top, and press the record button. It's as simple as that. Experiment with the height to see how much of the bar sound you want to capture. The higher it goes, the less of the marimba's contact sound you're going to hear, and you're going to hear more of the reverb in the room. So be careful of capturing too much room sound or too much bar sound. As with all recording applications, you want to make sure the input level is lower than your maximum volume. So a good way to do this is to start recording, play as loud as you can on the instrument, like loud as you physically can without damaging it. And then you can either look at the recorder, some of them have a peaking light that will tell you if it's peaking. If that's flashing, that's a no-no. Or you can listen back to the track, and if you hear any sort of clipping or distortion, it's too loud. Then turn it down until you have a nice amount of headroom between 0 decibels, which is where it will peak, and where the maximum of your recording is. Because when you start to add effects like things like reverb and equalizer, this level is going to start getting pushed up. So ideally, keep as much space as possible. I actually like to set my recordings even lower than that, just to make sure I have heaps of room so that I can bring it up later. So that's the portable setup. It's very easy to do. Let's talk about the fixed setup. So one of my biggest tips when it comes to any of these more elaborate setups, do not plug anything in until you have placed everything where you want it to be. So start off by putting the microphones on the stands and put them on either side of the marimba. I always recommend trying out a spaced pair first, like what I have in my videos, one towards the bass end and one towards the treble end. Again, nice and high, angled downwards and pointing inwards. Do not put your microphones in a position where they'll be facing each other directly. For example, I have seen some people put them on the ends of the marimba horizontally facing inwards. And you're gonna get this thing called phasing, which is when you have 2 microphones recording directly intersecting each other. And you're gonna get a lot of weird lag and decay, and it's just gonna sound super weird. Don't do it. Another way to mount these microphones is by using the XY stand in the box and overlapping them like this. And this works, but it is a little bit more unsightly on camera because it has to be in the middle of the instrument. I prefer to have it out of the way. So it's totally up to you. So once you've got the microphones where you think you want them to be, plug them in to the audio interface by plugging the male end into your microphone, female end into your audio interface. And once they're plugged in, check the levels. Before you start neatening up the cables, wrapping them around the stands and getting them out of the way, check everything first. Check the height, make sure that you're happy with the mix of bar sound and room sound. Check the gain by doing the same method, play your maximum volume and check to see whether it's clipping. If it is, give yourself more headroom. You can also plug in your headphones directly into the interface so you don't have to keep going back and forth. Another thing, make sure you know which channel is which, because normally my camera is on the audience side, so I will have the bass end on the right hand side and the treble end on the left hand side. So I like to emulate that with my mic setup. My left channel is usually 1, that's the microphone on the treble side, and my bass end is 2, which is the microphone on the right-hand side. If you are recording something like a point of view video where it's coming from your side of the marimba, then of course you need to flip these around. So that's why labeling the cables is really handy, so you know which one is which. And if you've gotten to this point and you checked everything correctly, you should have a recording of yourself. Well done! That means we can move to the final step, step 3, which is edit. So editing is one of the most important things when it comes to recording, because you're gonna have to do it anyway. Most of the time when you're submitting these clips for auditions, you need to trim them, or if you're uploading it onto YouTube, you need to trim them, and at the very least, you need to save it and export it. So you're gonna be going through the editing workstation at some point. Now, when it comes to video editing, I think of myself as pretty good. I've been editing videos for many years. And when it comes to basic stuff like audio recording, I'm pretty good. But when it comes to more elaborate things like effects and compression and things that I know how to do but can't really explain that well, I prefer to leave it to the experts. Which brings me to the sponsor of today's video, which is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community full of millions of creative people like you and me, learning new things from the comfort of their own home. Topics like music making, as well as photography, videography, graphic design, visual arts, even things like creative writing, business and marketing, web design, cooking, and fitness. So I actually use compression a lot in my videos, whether it's for my voice or whether it's for some of my marimba recordings, except I can never explain it. So I went ahead and took a class by Steve Perino, who's a professional producer, audio engineer, and songwriter, and he has a class called Compression, a quick, easy guide. And what I really loved about this class is he explained the role of a compressor as well as the role of threshold, ratio, attack, release, makeup, gain, and I dare say he actually explained compression better than any of my previous digital audio teachers in school, which is pretty good. And you guys know that I love talking about affordable things on this channel, and Skillshare is no different at just $10 a month for an annual subscription, which gives you unlimited access, ad-free, to every single class. That's literally thousands of classes. But I've got an even better deal for you guys, and that is of course a link in the description below and in the pinned comment below, which will get you 2 months free of Skillshare Premium. And this offer is only valid for the first 1,000 people who use this link. So go check it out. So the most important thing with editing your audio tracks, especially marimba tracks, is to not go overboard. Think of it more as a seasoning rather than the main ingredient. You don't want it to absolutely destroy all the hard work that you've put into your recording. One good example of this is reverb. Do not put excessive reverb on your marimba tracks. Remember, marimba has natural resonance, and by putting a super long release tail at the end of every single one of your notes, it actually makes all of the harmonies clash, and you end up with a very muddy bathtub type sound. Similarly, don't play with equalizers too much. If you've mic'd your marimba correctly and you've played it well, you shouldn't need to boost any frequencies that much. Yes, you can add a little bit to the bass if you're using the portable recorder, simply because this microphone is small, but don't overdo it. Like, I think most people can tell when it's fake and it doesn't sound good. Finally, when you're exporting the audio, make sure you pay attention to what format you're exporting it as and the quality. So generally speaking, when you are exporting for things like albums and more serious audio applications, use the maximum quality possible. That would usually be something like a WAV file, which is usually raw. It's going to be a huge file, but it's going to sound the best. This is the one time where it doesn't cost you more to have better quality, so just go for the maximum possible. And yeah, if you've reached this point, you should have a very nice recording of yourself playing marimba, and you should be very proud of yourself because you did it all on your own. So if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. And please let me know down in the comments below if you have any questions about recording yourself or pretty much anything else. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'd love to hear from you. Finally, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more content like this, please hit that red subscribe button below to keep up with my uploads. I upload every single week, and hit that notification bell to know whenever I upload a brand new episode. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next week for another episode of The Studio. Good night.
I finally stopped running now. With you I found my peace somehow. Let go of every thought that was holding me back. Yeah, I'm in love with you in every way. That joy you give me every day.